Hello everybody and welcome back to the Superlite coupe build. In this video we are going to cover a number of components that I spent time mocking up. And basically the reason why I'm spending so much time mocking things up is, the Superlite coupe is a wonderful kit. It really is a great project. It's very flexible, which is, it's designed to put almost any size engine in the car. And I chose this LT4 that's supercharged, and when you choose an engine like this, it has a lot of accessories and add-on components that are necessary. And the Superlite is not a big car. There's not a lot of room to place all these components, and you really have to think through where everything is going to go. And in my opinion, it does make sense to invest some time to mock everything up so that in your own mind you sort of have it straight where things are going to go. Okay, so let's sort of take a summary of where we left off. You know what, I'm going to grab my trusty pointer here. This is the front compartment, and we did some mocking up already, right? We have the mocked up fan shroud and the drop-in fans. We've got the clutch reservoir. We've got the dryer bottle. This is the brake reservoir with the power brake booster. I fabbed up an aluminum bracket for the electric vacuum pump that drives the power brakes. This is a hydraulic pump that actuates these pucks that are in the suspension to raise and lower the nose, so you can clear driveways and speed bumps, etc. This is the hydraulic fluid reservoir for the pump, and then this is the AC dryer, and I'll show you where that goes in a little bit. So the first step was really to figure out how to run the cooling tubes, these white PVC tubes, and this is what comes in the kit. The kit is supplied with a number of stainless steel straight tubes, and then they have these knurled ends so that you can clamp like a silicone hose to them. And a lot of people will set those tubes up as supplied by RCR. It's a number of elbows, it's a number of clamps, and those are leakage points. So what a lot of builders like to do, instead of going out and purchasing the silicone elbows, they purchase stainless steel elbows and then have them welded in. So that is the approach I'm going to take. The first area of concern, we've got this 2.5 gallon dry sump tank, and I'm going to zoom in here. And I had to get a little cagey with how to route this pipe into the thermostat area on the engine. So I used some 45-degree angles, and I'll snake it behind the tank. Now that cross beam is 2 inches, the pipes are 1.5 inches, so I have enough room to get that done. I'll use some P-clamps to secure the pipes along the chassis. Then the pipe sort of hugs and snakes its way along the edge of the chassis, and then it tucks under, and then it enters the front compartment. And essentially I'll just use a simple rubber hose to connect the top of the radiator to that particular tube. If we look on the other side, basically the radiator discharges from the bottom, or gets fed from the bottom, whichever way you want to work it. And then this tube runs along the side. I did this a little different. I added a 45-degree angle in this area. I wanted to keep this area clear because this is where the air filter, the air intake filter, is going to go. And then I'll have some length of tube here, and then this will connect to a flexible radiator hose and connect to the front of the LT4. So that worked out pretty well. The next to do really is to figure out where the AC hoses are going to be oriented. So remember in an earlier episode, I moved the compressor from down below to up top. So the supply and discharge lines from the AC compressor are simply going to drape over the side of the chassis. I'll secure them in some way. They'll just sort of run through the side pod, and then the number 10 hose is going to enter the chassis up here, run along the inside line, and then connect back to the evaporator. The number 8 hose has to connect to the condenser, so it'll snake along the front of the line, and it'll enter the front compartment via a bulkhead. And then once it gets to this side, I'm going to use a thin aluminum pipe because the real estate is very tight, and that's going to feed through this hole in the radiator out and connect to the condenser. So that's sort of the way the AC tubes will be oriented. The dryer is going to be mounted on the side of the front compartment. It'll be fed through a number 6 bulkhead that'll come out around here. And then also an aluminum tube will go through that hole and connect to the condenser. Okay, another thing that I decided to do, and I think this was sort of unique, I do like to mock things up out of plywood. If you've been following along, I actually built the mock-up of the door jamb. And the door jamb, you know, sort of rests inside this interior tub to get oriented. And this is it's called the J-hinge assembly, and that opens the butterfly doors on the Superlite coupe. But it's held up with a gas strut, and I was having a hard time sort of visualizing really how to place both the heater, you know, the heater tubes, and also this number 10 AC tube, and have it clear the gas strut as well as clear the body. So I made this mock-up, and now I figured out, you know, how far off the chassis the end of the strut needs to be. You want it oriented so the tip of the strut or this rod clears this side, and then the body of the strut can sit sort of behind the ridge. Okay, and to make sure these hoses clear the body, you know, put my pointer down here. You know, I made a little template of inside the body, and you know, this sort of shows me I've got enough room. Now, once I know exactly where I'm going to place these tubes, you know, I'm pretty much sold on this design, so I'll order the bulkheads. We'll see how far off the body they sit, and I'll probably put the body on and measure this area one more time before I drill the holes. But anyway, that was a bit of work, but you know what? I at least now can visualize this whole setup and see where things are going to go. Let's see, a couple other things I've mocked up. I've temporarily attached the brake lines. So the kit comes with these stainless steel brake lines. For the clutch and the rear brakes, they snake around, and they wind up going all the way back here. You can see there's the transmission, the clutch, and this is the rear brake. And then I think I pointed these out in the prior video. This is the battery. I'm going to use a battery with 2 sets of cells, so they come out in sections because the area is tight there to remove it, but I think that'll work. This is the fuel swirl tank, but I'm going to turn that into the radiator reservoir for the intercoolers. And let's see, the only other thing I ran, well, I mocked up the brackets. You can see those wood brackets for the dry sump, so I'll make those out of aluminum. Also, I've got a quarter inch line going along the front here, and also a bulkhead, and that's going to connect to the bleed hose. A lot of builders don't bother with that. They sort of bleed the system and then leave it be, but other builders say, you know, you really should put a bleed line in. But anyway, that really covers all of the mocked up components. And really the next step is, now that the coronavirus issue is settling down, I'll get over to the welder and he can fabricate my fan shrouds, fabricate the cooling tubes, and I'll order the AC fittings. The bulkheads are not included in the kit. And then I'll start attaching all these components. Okay, so that'll be the focus of the next video. Thanks for following along, and take care.